I have finally completed the Mandalorian project. Now, I have made a lot more than 7 minifigures for this project, but I'll only be showing 7 of the best in this video. 2 main characters are missing from this video, that is Moff Gideon and Ahsoka Tano. For Ahsoka Tano, the reason I didn't do her again is just because I did not have the right resources to make her properly, and then I just think Moff Gideon's outfit is really boring, so I just had no motivation to even start trying to make him. But without further ado, let's get into the first minifigure in this showcase, who is BoKatan. So here we have Lady BoKatan. Now this minifigure was quite a challenge as there was quite a few things which I haven't really tackled before. The first biggest problem was the hairpiece. Now whilst I'm still not entirely happy with the hairpiece now, I think it did come out quite nice. It could be a bit longer however. I could have even not done any hairpiece at all, I could have just done a helmeted face, but I decided as my last Mandalorian minifigure was DinDjarin and he didn't have a helmet and he had his head with the hair, I decided to go with this one as well just for a bit of continuity I suppose. The actual hair was done with a Han Solo hairpiece, which I then just sculpted onto obviously and got all the different lines and things in. And I sculpted that headband on in the front about 5 times before I got with one which I thought looked kind of acceptable. I still do think it looks a bit strange though, and that was just painted with orange and silver and then was washed in brown. Moving down to the torso, which is where I think I did the best. I think that the armour on the torso is really good. I've got very familiar with sculpting Mandalorian armour at this point, because I think I've done about 20 at least by now. So I was really comfortable doing this. This is really quite fun to do, and it's just painted in silver and it's got some black and things as well. Arms pretty simple as well. It was just some simple sculpting for the gauntlets and the shoulder pieces. However, painting that night owl symbol was quite tricky, but I think it looks pretty good. The back piece on the torso has 2 magnets as usual, and then I've just got that jetpack which also has the 2 magnets so that it can attach to the back magnetically. That jetpack, once again like in my last DinDjarin minifigure, is not actually mine. I got it from a third-party Lego reseller, and then I just modified it a bit and added the clay and things to accommodate for all of the magnets and everything, and then it's all painted. I just painted that in silver first, then I used some pewter, which is like a darker silver, then I added in the blue, then some more battle damaging. The legs were really quite simple, so I'm not really going over them. It was just some simple sculpting and then some painting. Some things I'd like to note as well is also those blasters are not designed by me, I just painted them up. They're also from a third-party reseller, and then also that face is actually painted by me apart from the eyes and also some other small features, but for the most part it's all painted by me. Overall, I am really happy with how this figure turned out. You can see my last attempt at BoKatan in the old Mandalorian project, and I think it's safe to say this is a million times better. Now on to the next minifigure.
You look like you've just seen a ghost.
You were dead.
She was left for dead on the sands of Tatooine, as was I. But fate sometimes steps in to rescue the wretched.
So here we have FennecShand, the only minifigure which I didn't make for the original Mandalorian project. Now at the time I just thought that the character was just not interesting enough and that the outfit just wouldn't work. But I've decided in the end that I'd give it a go, and I think it looks pretty good. It is actually fairly simple, there's really not much that went into this, but I think that is just a really clean minifigure. Now I started by doing something which I haven't done before, which is I want to make this minifigure really slim. So with the torso, I actually shaved off the front of the first ghost at the bottom, just to make it a lot thinner around the waist, so then I could put this belt on so it wouldn't look too bulky around the waist, because I wanted it to be really thin. Then all of the other details on this figure are all electrical tape. It was all then painted in black and added some little orange details and things, really nothing special. The face is all painted by me apart from some certain elements like the eyes, which are already printed from Lego's face. Then the hair was a standard Lego hairpiece with a ponytail, and then I sculpted quite a lot onto the back to make it look more like FennecShand's hair. It would have been better if I used the slave Leia hair from a few years ago, but I don't really have access to that piece right now, so I think this works quite well. Her blaster is just a Car 98, and then I just glued on a normal Lego Star Wars scope. It's a bit lazy, but I think it works. Then that was just painted in matte black around the center, and then I left the outsides a bit shinier. I decided not to do a helmet for this figure in the end, just because I thought it was quite a strange shape and would take quite a long time to do, and these videos are already taking long enough. And also, since my more recent Mandalorian project figures just didn't have the helmet, I thought that it would make more sense, so I could have all of the helmetless minifigures. So that is it for FennecShand. I think this figure is very simple, but I think it works. I think it resembles her quite well. Not heaps of detail, but I think that's fine for some characters. Now, on to the next character. Here we have DinDjarin, or the Mandalorian, in his Beskar armor, but this time without the helmet. Now I think I've put the most work into this figure out of all of them. I've gone through so many different iterations of it. This is actually the third time I've sculpted the entire thing, and also I kind of updated some things after I did that. So I've gone through about 4 iterations of this figure at this point. However, this is only the second one I've actually shown. Now this is basically the same as the last project showcase. It has got all the same armor and everything, but I decided to get rid of the helmet and change it for a head. So that hair is just a Pro-Damron piece from a X-Wing, which I then modified. I shaved a bit off and things, and then I just painted it in a brown. Then that head is basically all painted by me, apart from the eyes. Everything else is painted though, all that beard and everything. The other thing I changed from the original project showcase was the back piece. So I put in the new back piece and some new magnets, and then that meant I could put in one of the newer updated jetpacks, once again from the third-party Lego reseller, not by me. I painted that jetpack all in black first, then I used some silver for a base coat and some pewter to kind of muddy it up a bit, and I think that turned out pretty nice. The accessories for this figure are fairly basic. The spear is literally just a pearl grey spear from Lego, which I just painted the top in pewter, just to have a different colour. And then the blaster is just a Brick Arms Luger from World War II, and then I just painted a few details on there, really nothing special. That's all I had to talk about with this minifigure. Now on to the next minifigure, which is the Mandalorian from the Season 1 of the Mandalorian. So here we have the other Mandalorian, which I did for this showcase. This is in his first 3 episodes armor, so his original armor, and I'm really happy with this figure. I think it's my favorite figure I've ever done, and it was also one of the first figures I ever sculpted, which is kind of strange. Now the only thing I've really updated is I've made this cape, and also I changed his blaster on his back. I do have a tutorial actually on how to make that blaster. If you want to go and check that out, there's a card on screen now for you can see that. Now this is a fairly simple sculpt, it's fairly much the same as all the others in this video, but I'll go over it. So the helmet just has the band sculpted on the top because I wanted it all to be quite slim and sleek. I didn't want it to be too bulky. Then it was all just painted in silver and obviously got the black for the visor. Then I did the base torso chest sculpt first, then I did all the other details like the band which has all of his ammunition on it, the ammo belt. Now that was actually done on the other one with electrical tape, but at the time I decided to use fabric, and I think it kind of works. It works for both ways. I'm not sure exactly what I like better. The back piece does have a magnet so that you can attach his blaster to the back, which I think looks really cool, so you can get that kind of iconic stance. And then that cape is just a normal cape from the Mandalorian battle pack from a few years ago, which I then cut up and changed and things, and then I did some little bits of matte black painting on it and things to make it slightly different, and I think that looks really cool. It's a really cool tattered effect. The sculpting on the legs was much the same as on the torso. It was pretty simple, and then I just did all the base color painting for all of the parts, and then I just used some black lines and things to define certain areas which I perhaps didn't do the best in sculpting. Overall, really happy with how this figure looks. As I've said before, I think it's my favourite minifigure I've ever done. He just looks really cool, and his outline I think is just really nice. And now on to probably the most iconic character from The Mandalorian, Baby Yoda. So here we have Baby Yoda, or the child, or Grogu, or my green little friend, or the frog eater. I'm not even sure what to call him at this point, he's got so many names. This is the only minifigure which is exactly the same from my first Mandalorian showcase, as I thought that it just worked well enough for me to not have to change anything. So I'll quickly go over all the things I did to make him. There is a separate making video which I did quite a while ago though. So I started with a 1x1 brick, then I just put some standard sculpting on for some of the robes, then I dry sculpted the little hands and the arms and the sleeves, and then I put them on with super glue. Then there was a magnet attached to the top of the torso, and then also a magnet attached to the bottom of the head so that they could connect together, and also so I could change the head one day when I someday get better at sculpting. The head was done with just an oval shape, which I then waited for it to cure and harden. Then I dry sculpted the ears and glued them on, and then that was all just painted. It's fairly obvious how it was painted. Just some tan, some dark tan for some creases, and then just some pretty much just green, sand green for the head with a few different details. I think this figure is pretty good. It's obviously not the best Baby Yoda out there. I could probably do it better now, but I think it still does just work, and it's quite an annoying thing to have to sculpt that head. BobaFett, the original Mandalorian. Now I made this figure quite a few months ago now, but I have made a more updated version more recently. However, I do not actually own it anymore as I gave it away to someone. So this is what I've got for this showcase. However, there is a separate video on the updated one if you want to see that. There's a card on screen now where you can click to get to that video. Now, this figure was really not too complicated, much like all the other Mandalorians, just because I've done so many at this point. The sculpting was really basic. It's the exact same as all the other Mandalorians pretty much, so I'm not going to go over that. The head is just a standard clone head from the 501st Battle Pack, where I painted on some bags underneath the eyes and also some scars and things. I hollowed out a bit of the inside of the helmet so that it could go over the painted head and it wouldn't scrape off any of the scars or anything, so you can have this figure with the helmet on and still have the normal head underneath. The painting for the most part was really simple. It was literally just base coats really, it was just one block colour. There isn't really any battle damaging on this figure, as BobaFett obviously updated his armour, so there's none of that. The only really tricky bit was the mythosaur skull on his shoulder. Now, I did do it better in my more recent one, but I think this one still does resemble it quite well, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out. The blaster for this minifigure, his EU3, was actually made I think about 7 months ago, and I got my first clay. So that is a really old blaster, but I didn't bother to update it or anything, as I think it still looks kind of good. The jetpack is just a normal Lego jetpack, and I got rid of the bracket piece that goes over the neck and put in some magnets, and then there's obviously the magnets also on the back torso piece as well, so that it can just attach to the back. That's it for BobaFett. Once again, a fairly simple minifigure, not too much painting detail. I have done an updated version, and you can see that in another showcase video, link in the description. Now, on to the next minifigure. And finally, we have CaraDune. Now, this is the second time I've done a CaraDune minifigure. I did a completely different one for the first Mandalorian project, and this one looks so much better. I did keep certain things the same, like the head and hair are basically the same, but I did repaint a few things on the head just because there were some things that didn't really work. But all of the torso, the arms and the legs and all that is all completely new. So the sculpting is fairly basic, you can kind of tell what it was. It was kind of a bit hard to do those shoulder parts, but I think they look quite nice. I had to carve them out quite a lot after sculpting them to fit the arms underneath, and it would have been better if I could have just kept the arms in, but obviously I need to be able to take them in and out to kind of change things while I'm painting it and stuff, so that just wasn't doable, but I think that from a practical sense it did work quite well. Then the painting was also fairly simple. There's just some black matte paint for the torso, and then obviously the greens and things. And since I used green stuff already, I didn't have to give it a perfect coat of green, because that actually made it look a bit better, because CaraDune doesn't actually have completely perfect armor. Her armor does have a lighter green, much like the green stuff green, so I think that worked quite well. The legs were very simple to paint. I literally just painted the boots on, a few different details on the armor, and then also those silver bits around the thighs. And then there's not really much else to it apart from adding a few bits of battle damaging and things. The blaster is literally just a brick arms blaster where I attached a normal Star Wars scope, much like with FennecShand, and I think that looks pretty good. I just painted a few details on there afterwards. I think that just looks quite nice. It looks like hers, it's not anything fancy, but it works. That's it for CaraDune. I think this figure is still not perfect, but I really don't like CaraDune as a character, so I just wasn't motivated enough to try and make this figure better than any of the others. So without further ado, let's end this showcase. So that is it, the Mandalorian project, something that I started many months ago. Now, I don't think I'll be updating this for quite a long time. I will be making some standalone minifigures from the Mandalorian Season 3, however, and also, of course, other series, spin-off series, like the Ahsoka series and the Book of Boba Fett. This project took so many hours to make, and even these videos take absolutely ridiculous amounts of time to edit and record, so I would appreciate it if you subscribed, and that also means you can see any future things which I put on my channel. So, thank you for watching, make sure you subscribe for more, and goodbye.